Yo, what's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Chicago Bulls listed as a potential landing spot for Mike Conley. Also, an NBA insider has been urging the Bulls to make a trade for Mike Conley. And the second topic in today's video is going to be about Vooch and him hinting at a possible contract extension with the Chicago Bulls. But before I jump into today's video, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Also, leave a quick like below today's video. It takes a second and helps me out a lot. And some comments and questions below today's video about these two topics and articles I'm about to jump into. But either way, let's just jump right into it because I'm going to be real. Obviously after the Utah Jazz traded Gobert and then Donovan Mitchell, I think we all knew that the Jazz were going to blow it up and trade all their veterans. And a bunch of articles came out and even an NBA insider urging the Bulls to make a trade for Mike Conley. And let me just first off say, I liked Mike Conley, but looking at his stats and his highlights, he's definitely getting up there in age and his play has not been the same. And I don't even understand why the Bulls would trade for Mike Conley. But before I jump into these articles, let me know below today's video if you guys would want the Bulls to trade for Mike Conley. Now, let me just first off say, obviously, this would never even be a topic if Lonzo Ball was healthy for training camp and the start of the regular season. But an article from basketballnews.com and heavy.com both came out. And basketballnews.com did put out an article and they were listing a bunch of potential landing spots for Mike Conley, and they did list the Chicago Bulls at one, and I just don't get it. I mean, we obviously signed Goran Dragic to the Lonzo Ball injury, and I feel like the Bulls just don't have the trade assets, and honestly just, their roster is already very guard heavy. Who knows what's going to happen with the injuries. Lonzo, I feel like they're just not in the best place to make a trade right now. I mean, in this article, they made a little comment about the Bulls, and they said, in light of the recent Lonzo Ball injury news, I can definitely see the use for a table setter in Chicago. The Bulls may be content with Goran Dragic filling that void. Beyond that, I'm not sure they can make the money work without getting rid of a core piece, and that's exactly why it just doesn't make sense, other than us already signing Goran Dragic and already having a lot of point guards on this roster. I just don't understand why these articles have came out. I mean, I like Mike Conley, but he's not the same Mike Conley from when he played for the Grizzlies just a few years back. I mean, for this past season with the Jazz, he still played solid in 72 games. He did average 14 points, shooting 41% from the field and about 5 assists a night. But he is getting up there in age. He is 34 years old. But other than him getting up there in age and his play kind of decreasing, I mean, this is the whole reason why I don't believe this would ever happen. I mean, I believe the Bulls are pretty content with the point guards they currently have on the roster. Also, Mike Conley for this upcoming year is expected to make $22 million. And then next season, he's about to make $24 million. That's way too much money for what he provides, especially with him getting up there in age. And say the Bulls would even have a chance in making this, like, I'd say a real trade conversation, it would probably have to be Vooch for Mike Conley, and then that leaves a big problem for the Bulls at the center position. It just doesn't make sense at all. Mike Conley is a solid veteran, but not worth $22 million or $24 for these next few seasons. I don't know. I don't believe this article makes any sense. Definitely leave some comments and questions below today's video about the Bulls listed as a landing spot for Mike Conley, and if you guys want the Bulls to make a trade for him. I just don't really see the point in it, especially if we'd have to give up Vooch and maybe a draft pick. I just feel like that's way too much, and Mike Conley just making way too much money, and I'm honestly just comfortable with Goran Dragic and Ayo running the show until Lonzo can get healthy. And speaking of Vooch, obviously there's been a lot of talk about Vooch. There's been a lot of trade rumors. I know a lot of Bulls fans have really wanted the Bulls to trade him, especially this past offseason, due to how inconsistent he didn't play last year. Even though his shooting percentages were up and down last year, I still thought Vooch had a pretty solid year. I mean, obviously there has been some talk, according to Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times, about how the Bulls and Vooch are expected to have some contract extension talks during training camp, and that made sense, let's be honest. I mean, a source did tell Joe Cowley that both sides want him to remain in Chicago beyond his final year of his contract. Vooch is heading into the last season of his contract with the Bulls, and he will make $22 million in this upcoming season. And obviously, earlier this offseason, there was a lot of trade rumors surrounding Vooch and Rudy Gobert. And let me just first off say, I know a lot of Bulls fans don't like Vooch. I mean, sure, his shooting percentages, and at times last season, he was a bit inconsistent. But at the end of the day, this man is a walking double-double, and honestly, he could be an all-star if if this Bulls team just performs better. I mean, let's say this Bulls team continued to play how they did to start last season and they were the first seed in the East. I could have seen Vooch be an all-star. I mean, he's still a walking double-double, especially all the little things he does for only $20 million per season. That's a steal. Also, you know, other than there's already been some reports about that, Vooch, about a week or two ago, he bought a new $5 million house in Chicago, which does suggest him and the Bulls are further along in contract extension talks than most have thought, and that's fine with me. I know some Bulls fans are not going to be happy with that. I mean, obviously, this could all just be rumors. I mean, we could definitely be wrong about this, but to me, it just doesn't make sense for Vooch to buy property in town unless he's confident he'll be here a little longer than just his one-year contract. I mean, I like Vooch, even though his last season was up and down. He still played pretty solid. Sure, he is 31 years old, but that's honestly not that old, and thankfully, his game does not rely on athleticism. I believe he continued to play and average a double-double for a while. I mean, last season, he was very healthy for the Bulls, and that's huge considering how injury-prone this team has been, especially last year. He did start 73 games, and honestly, that would have been more if he never got COVID. And in those games, he did play about 33 minutes, and he did average 18 points per game, shooting 47% from the field, only 31% from three-point range. Hopefully, that percentage does go up in this upcoming season. Also, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block per night. And I also think Bulls fans tend to forget how good this Bulls team was to start the season last year, and Vooch especially. He was playing very solid on the defensive end when Lonzo and Caruso were healthy. I'm expecting a bounce-back year from Vooch, and I honestly expect a contract extension to get done. I mean, Vooch is kind of hinting at it with him buying, I'd say, a house in Chicago. I mean, we could all be wrong, but I just feel like it'd be silly to buy a $5 million house in Chicago when he's a free agent in less than a year. Also, I know some Bulls fans are still going to want the Bulls to trade Vooch or just let him walk next year, and I don't think that made sense. I mean, the Bulls don't have that much money next offseason. I believe Vooch is going to be one of the best free agents available, so hopefully they can just come to a team-friendly agreement or contract extension with him just to keep him back, because let's be real, there's not that many good centers next offseason, and the Bulls aren't going to have that much money. That's why I wanted Mo Bamba for this past offseason. I believe the Bulls could have got him. He could have started at the 4 or the 5 or even just coming off the bench, and he could be the young center of the Bulls' future. I really liked Mo Bamba, but I understood that the Bulls front office, especially the Bulls ownership, didn't want to spend all their money and go over the tax. But no matter what, definitely leave some comments and questions below today's video about the Bulls being linked and listed as a potential option for Mike Conley. I just really don't get those articles and that talk. I mean, that would never happen if Lonzo was healthy, especially for Mike Conley making $22 to $24 million per season over these next 2 years. That's just way too much money, and I mean, it would have to cost the Bulls Vooch. He's the only player on this roster making that much money. But other than that, leave some comments below today's video about a possible Vooch extension. Thank you guys for watching today's video. Have a good one.